and he was offering sacrifices to his god, to Moloch. They start channeling spirits, but the most blood-curdling thing that I saw was when people actually made a commitment to Satan to sell their soul and trade for making it in Hollywood.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I do. When they hate, I create.
Welcome to Pounder's Quest, everybody. Thank you so much for questing with me. I know you could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're right here with me, and for that, I'm super grateful. Tonight, I have David Heavener joining me once again. David is a former Hollywood actor and still an actor to this day, producer, but he's going to tell us about some of the things that he saw in Hollywood and even people selling their souls and a Nephilim Brotherhood who is controlling the network right now. So guys, stay tuned for that. Enjoy the broadcast. I promise that you will not be sorry.
Hey, John, so good to be with you. God bless you and all of your followers. And so it's good to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about this. I know last time you came on, it was a very popular podcast. A lot of people really enjoyed it and asked me to have you back. And I wanted to have you back for a couple reasons. One, to talk about the occult things behind Hollywood, because we know there's a ton of those, but also you have something coming up as well, and we'll go ahead and talk about that real quick before we get into the topic tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got, The Last Evangelist TV series, John. It's an episodic, like CSI meets the Book of Revelation. And I play a cop. I bust underground churches for not registering with the government because of a virus. Well, anyway, I play this cop, and I bust these churches until one night I go blind and I hear a voice. And when I open my eyes, I start seeing things in the spirit. Episode 2 deals with who's behind this insertion. Episode 3, which is premiering the 26th of January, this coming Monday, is about the AI Bible. And it's about the Jesus that they're now touting. And it's really happening now, John. So I pray that this series opens the eyes of people. And it is entertaining, but also it's shocking to them.
I might have to edit some of the words out, but know this, guys, if you heard part of what he said, at least you're going to enjoy this. And I'm actually going to be kind of helping with that. So I'm excited to do it. And
Yep.
I'm going to be playing an extra in, I think, your next episode. So I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you're going to be co-hosting with me on Monday night. People can watch it on your platform as far as the opening of it. And then, of course, they want to see the show. They have to be a member of David Heavener TV. Just go to David Heavener TV, davidheavener.tv and sign up.
All right, very good. So let's get into the topic tonight, man. So you worked in Hollywood for a long time. For the people that haven't watched the episode that we did before, this is a good one. You should definitely check it out. So tell me about the occult roots behind this. I've heard this from so many people. I've heard about all kinds of wild stuff that goes down, but I would love to hear it from you.
Yeah. Well, I listen to a lot of people that come out of Hollywood, or they say they do, and they talk things, and I scratch my head and going, well, they're saying things that I've never heard about. Not saying it's not true, but then they're not talking about things that need to be talked about. I want to talk about what's really important here so people understand this. People in Hollywood, certain people aren't really there. Okay, what does that mean? I've done movies with people and I've acted and starred, and I won't mention their names, and I've looked at them, John. I've been in the same room with them, but there's nobody home. They are not there. They are taken over. People go, well, David, what does that mean? It can mean a number of things. Program multiples. Many people that you see in Hollywood are programmed. They're program multiples for a very specific reason. Number 2 is you've heard the Nephilim. I do believe there's now an infiltration. They're now moving in and taking over the industry, film, taking over music industry, taking over politics, taking over law enforcement. These are the Nephilim, Genesis 6. And but number 3, which is the saddest part, is people have made a deal with the devil. They've actually sold their soul. And unfortunately, I was at one of these I don't know what you would call it, events where they do this. And it's very, very sad because people enter into it not even knowing they're doing it, but they do it. And once you do it, it's really very, very difficult to get out of.
So, a couple questions come to mind for this. First off, you said you were at one of these events, and you don't have to get graphic with it, but what does that look like?
Well, there's a lot of things that go on with it. I was a kind of a Christian at that point, John, where I was straddling the fence like a lot of Christians do. I was trying to play one side against the other. I was hoping I could eat at the table of God and the table of demons at the same time. I was still trying to please man instead of, I was still trying to please man instead of God. So here's what it is. I got involved with a certain star actor. I'm not going to mention his name. And he was involved in the occult. And he was number one involved. Well, I went to his house and it was he and I having dinner and he fixed three plates. And he gave me a plate, he got a plate, and I said, "Who's the third one for?" He goes, "Oh, it's to God." I'm going on, and he was offering sacrifices to his god, to Moloch, in his room. So he invited me to a series of events. I went to one. So what that looks like is this. They start channeling spirits, and they did start channeling, and there's a lot of channeling going on, necromancy, talking to the dead. And everything from this didn't happen when I was there, but a lot of sexual activity, orgies, and so forth. But the most blood-curdling thing that I saw was when people actually made a commitment to Satan to sell their soul and trade for making it in Hollywood. And I don't want to go into details here, but this was shocking. First of all, I thought it was a joke. And then, I realized it wasn't. And so I started investigating this. Like, was it the act that they did it that day that was selling their soul? In other words, they signed it in blood, they were selling it. No, it wasn't. Do you know what it was? It was it was over time how they gave their mind up and they traded their morality and they traded their spirituality so that they could make it in Hollywood. In other words, it wasn't a one-time event. The one-time event consummated the act, but it was a it was a period of time where people became complacent and they finally was taken over. And this is what really bothered me because I saw a lot of young people uh, getting sucked into this.
Being a Christian and seeing that, I bet it was shocking. But what were the, I guess, terms of this contract? For the people who would sign it, and you said they signed it in blood, right?
Yeah, so what it is, it's really a mind control. Because I believe now we can go down a rabbit hole if you want. I'll be happy to. It's not really a rabbit hole. I think it's important. I don't believe that people cannot come back because the only time that you cannot be saved is blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. That's the only unforgivable sin. That's the only time that sin cannot be forgiven. So I don't believe you can't come back. The problem is, John, is that people get so deep in this, they no longer have their facilities. They no longer have their faculties. They cannot reason anymore. This is why you see actors, stars, saying the most outrageous, bizarre, crazy stuff you'd ever seen in your life. I've seen it. They hate Trump, and I'm not going to go political, but just the hatred that spews out of people now, in Hollywood and some of the crazy stuff that they're talking about. So what happens is they lose control of their mind. And this, I believe, happens over a period of time. And the reason this is different than program multiples is usually a corporate event where you have a group of people, usually covens, get together and they will program somebody a lot of times since birth, and they program them for an agenda. So one of the multiple personalities, the split, has a purpose to do a certain thing. And so a lot of these actors that are programmed multiples, they have a purpose and they've been programmed for a purpose. And this is why you see them into They were programmed for that. They were programmed to spew this hate that I was just talking about, politically. They were programmed for, well, it just goes on and on. That's program multiple. What I'm talking about is people intentionally selling their soul, eternity, for for a vapor life in Hollywood, which is not even, I mean, I can't imagine, because if you really know what it's like, which I do, I had a taste of B movie stardom. There's nothing anybody wants to, I wouldn't sell, my tennis shoes for it, much less my soul. So there's a difference in these things happening. Um, the other thing too, I mentioned the Nephilim, which I talk a lot about this in my new book. There's now people that I believe that are shapeshifters that have come into our realm or into our existence. They've been there for a while, but now they're really flooding in, and they have an agenda. And so I see that in Hollywood now. I meet people and they're just not people, and you can't just turn around and talk about it, because people think you're nuts. I can talk to you about it and to your audience because they understand it. But these are top three things that are happening in Hollywood right now that deal with the occult.
Mm. I remember Mel Gibson's story about meeting, I guess, Christopher Walken on the roof and what he talked about. And then you told me about a point when you were in a scene and you noticed somebody shape-shifting right there in front of you. And so when you say there's Nephilim in Hollywood, how many of the A-list, I guess, top tier B list and all that, how many of those people do you think are either Nephilim or somehow involved in the whole occult underground? If you're in pain, you do not have to be. Check out Nano Extreme Pain Cream. This is the only pain cream out of all the pain creams that are on the market that all the ingredients go through all 7 layers of the skin, and it acts almost instantly. Within seconds, your pain goes away. I know this because I'm in pain a lot. I do jujitsu, so I'm always having lower back pain, or I'm having carpal tunnel pain, and this knocks it out almost right away. Hundreds of you guys have already got this and have messaged me and said how great it is. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm glad you guys enjoy it. So check it out. If you follow the link in the description, you will get 25% off if you use the coupon code that they have on that site. So make sure you guys check that out. 25% off. I'm telling you, try it. Trying is believing. I've even been to the lab. This is how serious I am about making sure that the product works and how good it is, and met the people, checked it out, and man, I'm telling you, this product is worth a try. So check it out.
Well, let me go back to my days when I first got into Hollywood. I want to start with the golden years of Hollywood, which weren't so golden as people think they are, better than they are now. But Tony Curtis, who was in one of my movies, and he was a big star at that time. I don't know how many your audience recognize, but he was a major star. And I was starring in a movie with him. I was directing it, and I wrote it and produced it. And so we were together out in the desert. People, the crew had left, and we were sitting there together. And he looked at me. He goes, "David, you know they're out there, don't you?" And I go, "Sure. Who? You know they're." Well, I didn't understand at the time, but he was trying to reach out and tell me that he had experienced this. You could call it paranormal. We don't in Christian world, but he was experiencing this spiritual behavior, and we went on to talk. And what he talked about, John, was a Nephilim, was people shape shifting, was people actually appearing and disappearing, and their faces were changing. And this was 33 years ago, right? So it was happening then big time. I did another scene with a lady. She just passed away, but she was an Academy Award winner, nominee. And she wasn't there. When I did the scene with her, she was so good that she wasn't there anymore. And so you see a lot of stars that they're really good actors. Some of them are, but some of them aren't, because they're not acting. They're just not there. Something has taken them over. And in Hollywood, when we do classes, acting classes, I'll tell you all something that maybe many haven't told you. We're taught to do this. We're taught to channel. We're taught to let in spirits. We're taught to astral project without even knowing it. I didn't know it. I didn't know what it meant until I got into this space. But then I looked around and go, my goodness, that's what I was taught to do in Hollywood. That's what the great teachers are teaching these actors to do. So that's why it's it's running rampant and it's been like this for a long time.
I remember hearing, I think it was Denzel Washington and a couple other people talking about that same thing where they channel something to act a certain way, and that would explain a lot about why they're such good actors. I mean, that's why it's hard to believe almost anything anybody that's come out of Hollywood. Not when I say come out, I don't mean like you, but comes out on Hollywood and says something to the public, because that any emotion, anything that they're doing is probably acting. And I think the trust for Hollywood actors, I think they said it was down like 70% in the last few years because people are starting to realize that. But when you say these people are shape shifting, is this because they are of Nephilim blood, reptilian bloodline? What is this? Because I know it sounds crazy, like you said, to most people, and probably not the people listening, but maybe. What is that? Why is that Nephilim would have this shape shifting ability?
Yeah, well, that's two parts of the question. The first one is let's talk about their agenda, which I think is the most important part of it. And these entities, they are demonic. Number one, if somebody's listening and they're not really familiar with it, the sons of God came into the daughters of men. God was so disgusted with it that he destroyed the world and sent that flood. Okay. But the spirit of the Nephilim is what lives today. All right. Did it make it through the flood? The seed? Yeah, the seed, because the spirit. So what does that mean? That these are demonic evil spirits. They're a hierarchy. Okay. And they have a very specific agenda in Hollywood. And that agenda is, I believe, and this is conjecture to a certain extent, is to hold the Brotherhood together, the regime. Hollywood has an invisible brotherhood that a lot of people don't know anything about. And there's certain actors that aren't accepted into it. Mel Gibson was one of them. I don't want to, John, I hate to keep naming names because especially if I'm not good friends with somebody, but I'm using him as an example because he's been very vocal about it. He wasn't accepted. He made that show Passion of the Christ. And it wasn't because he made that. It's because of why he made the Passion of Christ, which I believe why he wasn't accepted into the Brotherhood. But there's actors that are part of it. And I think you probably know who they are. If you just watch the news and you see some of these people, you're going to see they're part of it. They're lost in it. So what is the agenda? They hold together, they form, hold together, and enhance the brotherhood of Hollywood because they have to have that brotherhood held together and actually get vibrant and increased in order to do what it is they need to do.
Yeah, and one thing that's common that a lot of people that I've talked to that are either demonologists or quote unquote exorcists, etc., they say that whatever these entities are, which we know what they are, but whatever they are, they want to be worshipped. And Hollywood seems like the perfect place for that kind of thing to manifest.
Yeah, yeah. Now they do want to be worshipped, and obviously, narcissism leads to that. But what they're going to do is they're going to lead people to the great man of sin, the of perdition, and that's the one that wants to be worshipped. They would like to be worshipped, but people think that a lot of these actors are, they're so egocentric and they're so self-indulged. They're not really. They're taken over. They have been taken over and controlled, and it just seems like they want to be worshipped. They do, but that's not their purpose. Their purpose is to open the door for the Antichrist so that he'll be worshipped, and that's their job, you know.
So when you say there's Nephilim in there, do you believe it's more of just regular people becoming possessed, or do you think we're talking about actual bloodlines here?
No, these are bloodlines. These aren't possessed people. There are people possessed in Hollywood, and that's another segment. I didn't even talk about that. There are people that are possessed. Usually, though, that's low-hanging fruit. They don't last long without going into drugs and alcohol and being exposed and doing crazy stuff because they can't control themselves. They're possessed, right? So I don't really focus on them a whole lot because they end up exposing themselves. The ones I focus on are the program multiples because they have so many personalities that you don't know who they are, and they play the game, right? Until that altar comes out, that is the one that does the dirty deed, whatever that dirty deed is, they have different agendas. So that's what I focus on. I focus on the ones that people don't seem to detect, that's not on the radar. The Nephilim's not on the radar, obviously. When people sell their soul to Satan, I noticed some things happen. I it's not really possession, like, they start losing their mind, they start going crazy. What it is, it's indifference. They don't have any emotion anymore. They're just vacant. You know what I'm saying? They're a vacant building, you might say. The ones that are possessed, that are taken over with emotion and they are taken over by a demon, they don't last long because the demons will usually, expose them.
What differentiates the person who, whether they decided or not, I don't know, but that is possessed by a demon versus somebody who just sells their soul? What triggers that demonic possession, in your opinion?
Well, demonic possession can come obviously from a whole lot of things. It can come from when you're a child, sexually abused. I interview a lot of people on my channel, hundreds that have come from sexual abuse. I'm sure you have too. Even SRA, satanic ritual abuse. Demons enter their personality at that point and they become possessed. They can be possessed by drugs and alcohol. The demon can come in and take over at that point. Um, Usually, a program multiple is not. They probably wouldn't have a possessed personality, but some of them do. A lot of people think if you're a program multiple, you're automatically possessed, and it's not true. I've dealt with a lot of program multiples, and they didn't have a personality that was possessed. But I've dealt with some that do have possessed personalities. So the difference is that when you sell your soul to the devil, it's really why you do it. If you're doing it because you were already possessed and this triggers you to want to have a remembrance, a point of reference, something to commemorate. I'm selling my soul at this date. I'll sign this contract. Then the whatever drove that demon to be in you, whether it's sexual molestation as a child, whether it was drugs, alcohol, is the reason you signed the papers, the reason you're giving it over. I don't, I've never seen, this is what I was trying to get across. I've never seen anybody who gave their soul to the devil and then all of a sudden they became possessed. Now, I'd never followed up with the people after that, but I've never encountered it, where that act causes you to be possessed. I think that it's the possession which causes that act, if that makes sense.
Do people in Hollywood have a choice if they want to work professionally, or not just professionally, but successfully in Hollywood?
They do have a choice, and this is the big deception. You don't need to sell your soul to Satan to be successful. You don't need to do that. Well, it's a, you've been and I'm talking to an actor right now, you've been fed a great lie, okay? You do not have to do it. There are people that have not sold their soul and they've been very successful. And there's people that have, and they haven't been quite as successful. So the lie is you need to adhere to what the demons tell you. And what does that mean? That means if you're a Christian, like I'm a Christian, I go into Hollywood now, it's a whole different story, John. It doesn't work anymore on me. I go in, I see a demon, and that demon's going to go. It's either the demon or me, right? I've done a lot of silent evictions where I've walked into a writer's room, and out of four people, I've identified one person has a demon, and I've done a silent eviction to get rid of the demon. So I don't
What do you mean by
tolerate.
silent addiction, or not addiction, a silent eviction?
That's my term. I don't go out, verbally and say, I command you in the name of Jesus, you're to leave. I don't do that, but I do it with my spirit, and it works. It's always worked for me, and I've been doing it for 3, 4, 5 years now. So I am not going to see compromise is the word. I'm not going to compromise. People are told that if they want to be successful, they have to compromise. And it starts in small things. It starts in don't talk about God. Okay, that's the first thing they want to tell you, not talk about God. Okay. Number two is if there's sexual innuendos, if there's nudity, you need to do it. Bad language, you need to say it. Okay, then it gets to the point where if you are going to blaspheme God, if you're going to take his name in vain, whatever, you need to do that. Don't cause any friction. Don't have the director get mad at you. So these are the little things, John, that happens that is called compromise, and it slowly causes a person to start stepping over to the other side. So then after a certain number of years, they start going up the pole and they realize they think they got to keep playing this game to keep going up. So they play bigger games and the stakes get greater, right? Um, you know, and so this is how this happens. It's a slow burn.
So so you're saying that it's a slow burn, but directors might get mad and everything. So my point is, I guess if you're working in Hollywood, don't you get a reputation for being, oh, that's the Christian guy, let's not book him for these movies, let's keep him away from the studio? Is that a kind of a culture there too, or is it they don't have really any power to stop you type thing?
They do to a certain extent. Boy, we're going to go into this pretty deep. So, yeah, so I'm going to open up a little compartment here. It probably hasn't been open. Most people that proclaim Jesus in Hollywood and talk about God and try to stand on their religion probably aren't really Christians. They think they are, or I'm going to give them a little credit. They're misguided Christians, right? Most. Okay. So what happens is when somebody does that, the devil sees that what they're doing and realizes that person really doesn't have any power because they don't really have any spiritual intelligence. I hope you're following me on this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they make a mockery out of this person that says they're a Christian. They come against them. They intentionally throw them out as an example, okay? You ever watch the Clint Eastwood movie where I think it was Pale Rider, where the good guys, the Amish people, found all this gold, and the bad guy was going to take it away from them. So the Amish guy gets drunk inside the saloon, walks out with the gun in one hand and the gold in the other, and tells the bad guy to come out. That you're not going to take my gold. You're not going to take my gold. And all of a sudden, these hired guns step out fully loaded, and the guy's standing there, you're not going to take my gold. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 they just gun him down, right? They gun him down. That's what these sometimes loudmouth Christians do. They go out and they make a mockery of God. They talk religion. They don't even they're absolutely, brain dead, really. So that, yes, that does happen, but I don't know that they're real Christians, or maybe they're deceived. Now, a real Christian, a person that really knows God and understands the Bible and will walk with the Holy Spirit, is not going to have that happen to him. It ain't going to happen because greater is he who's in me than he who's in that movie industry, right? I'll shut that show down in a heartbeat, and I can do it in the power of God, right? I don't mean to be uh, bragging or anything, but you have the power of God in you, John. I have the power of God in me. We're not to be pushed around like that, right? But what's the difference? You won't have me going on a set and start preaching Jesus, right? I don't do that. I'm very selective in when I speak, where I speak, and I'm very aware of demons. Most of these people don't even know anything about demons. They just go out and put themselves on the line. So my belief is that no, if you really understand scripture and demons, they can't really affect you that much. They can deter you, but if you don't understand it and you go out there and start blabbing away, they can completely destroy your career.
Mm. Yeah, you see that with a few people that are coming up lately, how they seem to be like new believers, and as they speak out, they're getting more and more afflicted as they do. And I know that like you said, this they're using them as an example, so, like, hey, look, this is what happens when you speak out.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah,
so
that you just hit the nail on the head. They love that. When a Justin Bieber or somebody comes out and they're very well known, they accept Jesus if they do. Man, the demons love that. They just love that because they're a prime target for them to go after and make an example because everybody's watching them, right? And I hate to see that happen because if they are Christians, they just don't have the pastor who understands this demonic warfare that wants to warn them and talk to them about it. So you just hit the nail on the head. That's very important.
yeah, and they're probably already compromised at that point. So like somebody like Justin Bieber, who knows the kind of stuff he's already gone through, they've already got him on film doing, and so yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were in Hollywood and you were talking about these rituals, you said Moloch was the kind of I'm just gonna make up. It's not really making up a word, but the patron deity. What's the patron deity of Hollywood?
Well, let me back up a little bit. You know, this Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, and I was on this bandwagon for so many years. I said, you know, this guy's no more than a Halloween character dressing up, you know, playing games and stuff. And sure enough, it was exposed as that. So anytime someone comes and talks about the Church of Satan and this type of stuff, that's a Halloween caricature of really what's going on behind the scenes. Okay. Um, what you got to be careful of is when people are doing the things that they're doing, they're actually worshiping Satan for real. It's Lucifer, okay? And they yield to it and they sacrifice to him. And this is their God. So they can put names on it. I mentioned Moloch, and they've got different names though, but that doesn't really, you know, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's the same entity, you know. I'm just saying when people talk about the Church of Satan, you know, that whole thing was just kind of a joke. But what I'm talking about is when they really do have the SRA, the rituals, and they're sacrificing to Lucifer, and they're also dealing with the bloodlines. And we can go on and on. I don't know how much time we have, but so it doesn't matter about the name. It's who ultimately they're sacrificing to and who they want to please, and that's Satan.
Yeah, one Craig Lund is the guy I had on that was a software engineer in Silicon Valley, and he was basically this kind of some of the same things that you're talking about is what he saw there. So the initiation rites and everything, getting basically becoming one of those tech billionaires. Everyone goes through the same kind of rituals, and he was saying that the Satanists, they just kind of the Luciferians keep them around because they're great fall guys, in case something crazy goes down. They're like the perfect fall guy for that. And would you say that that might be the case in Hollywood as well?
Well, of course it is. And this is why, I talked about in my book about I can't think of the name of it now, but it's where they come up with all this sensationalism about demons and so forth, and then they come and prove them wrong, you know.
Mhm.
And this is what they do. They want to intentionally put the word out there and let people see it, so they can come and prove people wrong and make a fool out of them,
Mhm.
or misguide people and have them looking over this way when it's really happening over this. And I tell people, if you think Satan is dumb enough for you to be so out in the open that you're going to sit and watch everything he's doing, then you got to be out of your mind. Because while you're watching what you think he's really up to, he's really over here doing this that he does not want you to see.
Yeah, because it says that Satan transforms himself into an angel of light, and so do his servants. Many of these Luciferians are great philanthropists and give lots of money to organizations. And they appear, I mean, just like the actors, they appear to be, when you're looking at it from without spiritual eyes, maybe like myself 20 years ago, how I looked at it, you think they have it all together because they're wealthy. They seem to have all the power, all the accolades, so where everybody loves them and worships them. So, but it's apparent that that reality is starting to fade. Do you think that there's something, what's going on in Hollywood that's causing their facade to I would say it's crumbling. I would say most people that are, especially anybody that doesn't only watch TV, they think it looks like it's crumbling. What do you think's causing that?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one is the internet, is social media. Guys like yourself and me and other people's that have a lot of followers. They don't. You don't need Hollywood. That's no one really cares about the stars anymore. Stars don't have respect because you got stars living in Walla Walla, Washington that have, 5 million followers, right? More followers than, Tom Cruise, right? So that glamour has been lifted. The emperor has no clothes, you might say. But number two, and again, I'm going back to that they're so blatant now, they're right in your face that they don't care if you know what they're talking about. All right. But also, they are also decoys. It's like you said, that makes these people delusional and say these things so you can watch them and then watch them get taken down. Okay. So there's multiple layers to this. But I think the most significant part of this is that we're in a time now where the Antichrist is going to emerge, and that's why Satan is getting so bold that he's just saying things right out front. So he doesn't care anymore. Okay. And the more he can say it, and the more we're used to it, the more they can say it even more, and the more we get used to it. And until the point is that we're there and we don't even know we're there. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I think that's why it is what it is. And I think Hollywood is going to continue going down. I don't think people respect most of these actors anymore.
And that leads me to my next thing. So you yourself have left Hollywood, and I know that you probably still have connections within it, and you've been trying to produce your own film, and that's something I want to bring out. Or not, you've been producing your own film. You've have a season. You're on. Is this episode 4 now coming up?
Yeah, episode four's coming out in April. Episode three we're releasing next Monday.
And yeah, on Monday. So you
Yeah,
have you
August
have your own thing you're trying to do, and one thing that when you try to get outside the system to do it, obviously you don't have all of the budget, the $1 billion for films, multi-million dollars for films that you would normally have. So I wanted to say this for people who are out there that have talents. If you're an actor, if you're an editor, if you're somebody that knows what they're doing in this industry, how can they link up with you to possibly make some waves and do something with all of this?
Yeah, yeah. So they can go to David at davidheavener.tv and put in the subject, put your name in the subject so I know it came from you, and I'll be happy to get back with you, whether you want to work on crew or be an actor or whatever. Again, we're having the big premiere January 26th on a Monday night. And if people, all you have to do is join davidheavener.tv. Or you can get a ticket, buy a one-time ticket for like $9 if you go to davidheavener.tv/show, and you can be there with us. So the other way you can help us is if you want to help donate and be an actor or a producer or whatever, go to lastevangelist.com. That's our private crowdfunding site. God said, don't take any studio's money, take my people's money because that money's clean. And so I've been having to do that, John. It's a tough road, man, because these are expensive, but we've won a bunch of awards, so God's been good and he's performed miracles, you know.
You never know, man. I mean, I think that if God's hand is in it, that the right person may just come along and be able to take care of that, because I do believe that the media industry, whether people want to admit it or not, can be a very, very powerful tool in the hands of the right people. I just got done interviewing a gentleman that is in the motocross, supercross industry, and he was just telling me about how corrupt that is. And it's interesting because the first thing that the enemy buys is the media companies. Like when it comes to the supercross and all that, they bought the media, so they control the narrative, and then they're able to kind of take it from there. And so I think that we have to be in that industry. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I mean, there's a part of me that wanted to, back in the day, wanted to be a part of the music industry and the acting industry. And then, I started to see like, okay, this industry as it sits is pretty much already in the hands of something wicked. And I saw that even in the Christian music industry, there's something wicked that stands over it all. And so to be able to go out independently and try to do this is a task. It's like David going up against a Goliath, but I still believe that if God's in it, it is very possible. So that's one reason I'm having you on, because I do think that people need to start supporting people that are doing this that aren't a part of the system, because it's not easy, as well as I do. I mean, if I was out there, just let's say tomorrow I decided, okay, I'm not going to talk about spiritual subjects anymore. I'm going to completely go into this industry, and I would have probably all the support I ever needed. But when we talk about stuff like this, the support is lacking, because I would say most of the people who care about this subject that are actually believers, a lot of them don't have a lot of money, and that's an issue. That becomes an issue, because I think that's, and I'm just going off on a rant here, but I think that's part of the downfall of the evangelical Christian church is they've taught people that they're supposed to be poor or they're supposed to have nothing, but that's not what the Bible says. It actually, there's just as many verses that talk about the dangers of poverty as opposed to the dangers of being too wealthy. And I think that it's important that we try to lift each other up. I mean, I don't know how many quote unquote Christians, David, and this is part of my rant here, that get mad that we make any money at all. Like, I mean, you're not supposed to be selling God's word. And of course, this podcast, Pounder's Quest, isn't all about Christian subjects. In fact, like, a lot of the guests that I have on, some of them aren't even Christian. They're talking about other subjects, but They hate the idea of anybody making money or even having money that are believers, when it should be the exact opposite. Instead of going and spending their money at Walmart or spending their money on a movie for the weekend, going to the theaters, they should be putting their money in where it matters. And that's why you see a lot of the enemy, that's why they're so powerful, because they know that. They know where they put their money in. They're very exact about how they operate. And I just feel like we as believers need to have that intention as well. They shouldn't be in power. If all the believers that supposedly believers that claim to be believers in the world would have taken their finances and decided, I'm not going to put it into this industry that's trying to corrupt people, because it doesn't matter what race you are. If you are a person who makes your money off corrupting people, then that shouldn't be supported. That shouldn't be supported by believers. But in fact, it is. And people like me and you who don't make a ton of money, but we're able to be supported by what we do, we're the bad guys. This is how twisted or the reality is for all this.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they go out and let Netflix suck up their credit card for $20 a month, child pornography and so forth. But you're so right. But I always say this, John, give me $1 from a true Christian. I'd rather have that $1 than $1 million from an unbeliever, because that $1 can perform a miracle like Jesus fed the 5,000 with a few loaves of bread and a few fish. And it's happened. I've seen the $1 get supernaturally multiplied. I had a little old lady drive all the way across country from North Carolina to Idaho. I was doing a convention speaking. She walked up to my table. Her eyes were blood red, shot red, and she gave me $15. And I said, well, thank you. She goes, I wanted you to have, God told me to give you this. Well, come to find out, she didn't tell me, but her friend said, do you know she drove all the way from North Carolina here and slept in her car just so she could give you that money because God told her to give it to you. That's when I first started Last Evangelist. And that's when God spoke to me. He says, this is a seed we're going to plant, and you use this little old lady's $15, and I want you to watch me make a miracle out of this. So that's my rant on $1 can amount to $1 million uh, in God's world.
I agree with that, man. And it is because believers, as believers, we should be taking everything that God gives and multiplying that. That should be part of who we are. This is like the blessing that God gives to those who follow Him. I believe that. Like if you there's like 50 verses that I have written down. I have different subjects, and each subject has verses that attribute to different parts of our life. You can attribute them to different parts. And one of those
Hmm.
things is there's blessings that come with those who follow God, because they work as if they're working for the Lord in everything they do, and they take their talents, aka their money, their whatever their talent may be, and they don't just take it and blow it. They multiply that, and that's like when you said when he fed the 5,000. There's actually, I don't know if you know this, but like in the very next chapter, he feeds 4,000, and it's only the men. So we're talking about possibly 20 to 100,000 people that they actually feed with those few loaves in each scenario. And so it's like that can be done. You're right. And that's why I think it's important that we're faithful with what we do and who we give our money to. Giving $20 to Netflix every month versus investing in the kingdom in some way, shape, or form to try to grow it. I think that that's important. And this show wasn't originally intended to even mention that or be about that, but I think that that's something that people in general, whether you're a believer or not, you should put your money where your mouth is. Whatever agenda you're trying to propagate, you should be putting your money into those agendas rather than suck it up through the POR and in industry, or back into the movie industry, or into the fast food industry, or whatever. There's so much money that just gets wasted and blown on the devil. And we definitely should be intentional about that. So I don't know. That this whole show turned into a few rants here, but I think it's important that we rant about it sometimes. Somebody has to.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And by the way, this has been on my brain. Earlier, it's called satanic panic. Is
Mm.
when they orchestrate people to look like it's demonic activity, and then they expose them to make you think that doesn't really exist. Anyway, sorry about that.
Yeah.
That was my OCD kicking in. No, but you're right. And here's the thing about it. God told me, He said, don't go to studios when you do Last Evangelist. First of all, He said, don't go to studios, get the money, or investors. Go to my people. I'm going, this is going to be tough. You want me to make bricks? And I don't. And then He said, start your own platform. I said, now you want me to make bricks with no straw, right? And I said, start my own platform. This was, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And so I did. And supernaturally, it's surviving, John. It's like a Netflix, of course, minus $17 billion, but we have over 1,300 shows on there, and it's davidheavener.tv, and we have Last Evangelist. So what I'm trying to say, and I think you're saying the same thing, in God's kingdom, we've got to do kingdom-minded things. We've got to support kingdom-minded projects, kingdom-minded people. Even though you're doing a show that's not all Christian, you're still a part of the kingdom. You're kingdom-minded. So we need to support you, right?
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of Christians get it wrong. Well, you're not preaching Jesus today on the show. No, but he will be because of his notoriety through the show that he's doing with this other person. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, so that's what we got to do. And I'm a big believer in that. I support as many Christians as I can with whatever little money God gives me to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think there's a verse that, and I might be quoting this a little bit off, but even somebody who just gives you a drink in the name of Christ because they're a believer, like God will bless that. So I think that that's something to really think about for people. And I appreciate you coming on, David. Let people know where they can find you. I know you've already said it 3 or 4 times, and I will put the link in the description, but go ahead and let us know where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks, John. If you want to find me, you can go to davidheavener.tv, sign up, become a member, and that way you can watch the show next Monday night. John and I are going to be co-hosting. If you'd like to know more about the ministry, you can text the word chosen to 91999 or go to davidheavener.tv/order if you want to get any of our shirts and Last Evangelist stuff. If you'd like to donate, you can go to davidheavener.tv/give. We really appreciate that. And last but not least, if God lays it on your heart to help us out with Last Evangelist, go to lastevangelist.com and you can donate and become an actor or part of the crew. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very cool. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, David, for coming, and pound the like button, pound the subscribe button, and pound that notification bell, for crying out loud. It would help so much, and share it out. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire.